Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kipiani. I'm chair for Tbilisi-based think tank Geocase. I should apologize with some problems on my side of this video, but at least we can see Ambassador, Her Excellency Sheraz Gasri. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us. And these discussions are about some highlights or some summary on your side, Your Excellency, in relation to the visits of the French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna to Tbilisi very recently, which was really an excellent demonstration of French support to Georgia. The visit was important because it was about bilateral ties. As we all appreciate, France has a very important voice when making an assessment of Georgia's pro-European path and integration dynamics. Your Excellency had various meetings in Georgia with the President of Georgia, Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, with the civil society. So I would ask Ambassador Gasri to give her impressions. It's no secret that two nations have historically very close ties, and really that was a very important messaging at this very critical juncture of history for Georgia when we're awaiting the candidacy status. So, Your Excellency, thank you so much indeed. You have been very kind for accepting our offer. Your impressions, please, about the minister's visit, your messages to the Georgian society and Georgian audience, and then probably a few questions from my side. So thank you so much indeed, and we're all in attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. If I may, it's a very great honor for me to address Geocase audience and everyone connected today. And it's with great humility that I'm talking to you because I've been ambassador of France to Georgia for 5 months now, and I was lucky enough to have a ministerial visit of our Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs at a moment that we know is very critical in Georgian history and in European history as well. We didn't have a visit of a Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs since May 2018, and at the time Jean-Yves Le Drian came to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the first Georgian Independent Republic, and many Europeans, I think, were gathered here with Georgia to commemorate that important moment. Of course, the situation has dramatically changed since then, with the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan since September 2020, with, of course, the Russian aggression of Ukraine, and finally with the Georgian candidacy to the EU that has led to the recognition of an EU perspective in June, and maybe will lead to a candidate status in December. If we add the October 24 elections, we can, I think, confirm altogether that we are a critical moment of Georgian history. Catherine Colonna came to Georgia. It was her first visit ever in Georgia. She is a career diplomat and was also in the past former Minister for Europe. She had opportunities to visit the South Caucasus, but it was her first time in Georgia, in Armenia and Azerbaijan, because, as you probably know, she came in the framework of a regional visit. It was her first time in Georgia, but she had the opportunity to meet with her Georgian counterpart already 3 times since she was appointed last May. And she met actually the Minister for Foreign Affairs the same week as her visit in Georgia, because he was invited in Luxembourg to meet with the 27 Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the EU. And he reported on the progress that Georgia considered has met on the 12 priorities. So as mentioned by Victor Kipiani earlier, Catherine Colonna met with civil society organization. It was important to meet with civil society organization in this visit because they are playing an important role. They are a pillar of Georgian democracy. They are very dynamic, serious. They are demanding, as it is the case in every democracy. And we have the same criticism that we have to deal with, and that are assets to move forward both in Europe and also in Georgia. So it was important for the minister to express her admiration and to encourage NGOs as well as all official authorities to work together in an inclusive manner to advance Georgians' objectives, because in the end, whatever Georgia decides of its future, with whom, which partner, which ally Georgia builds its future, nothing will be done without the forces in the country. And that's where the dynamic has to come from. So as you mentioned, Victor, the minister met with the president, the prime minister, and the minister of foreign affairs. All through her visit, she has three very simple and not surprising messages. First messages, a message of support, of solidarity, and support and solidarity with Georgia in a very difficult international context. Catherine Colonna insisted on France's attachment to Georgian security, Georgian territorial integrity, and Georgia's sovereignty in the context of Russian aggression against Ukraine. Of course, we all know that Georgia, more than anyone, knows what it is to be the victim of Russia's disregard for international public law, as Georgia is still paying the price of 2008 war. And I think it was very important to come to Georgia to express this message. 2 days after the aggression of Ukraine, Jean-Yves Le Drian, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, made a phone call. The President Macron made a phone call to President of Georgia, and our Minister of Foreign Affairs called your Minister of Foreign Affairs to express solidarity and support to Georgia. When we all thought at the time that Georgia could be next on the list, we're still looking seriously at Georgia's situation. We know that the situation is fragile, that the country is vulnerable, and the minister came to express solidarity and support to Georgia's security. And Catherine Colonna obviously underlined a strong resolve and unity within the EU to stop Russia's illegal behavior, together with all our allies. We are convinced that it's the interest of the region, of Europe, and the international community as a whole. The minister expressed appreciation for Georgia's support, specifically in international fora when it comes about voting to condemn the illegal aggression of Ukraine. And she insisted on the importance to stick together to get Russia to respect international law. So in no way Russian policy should be rewarded or underestimated. Same for its propaganda, obviously. As I mentioned earlier, Catherine Colonna came in the framework of a visit in the region in the South Caucasus, and she encouraged Georgia, who is playing its part, to continue its effort, to even increase them if they can, to contribute to peace and stability in the broader region of the South Caucasus, like in Georgia, like in Ukraine, Armenia, and Azerbaijan wants peace and stability and build a prosperous future. And all mediation efforts are welcome. There were promising meetings, as you know, in Washington and in Brussels yesterday. We hope there will be others and that they are going to open the path for a peace agreement. And Georgia's role is more than welcome in this regard. Second message that Catherine Colonna passed was obviously France's support to Georgia's European future. The minister was impressed by the flags and the tags on the streets of Tbilisi, although she spent like 6 hours in the city, but she had the opportunity to see them. She was amazed by the figures of 85, sometimes 89% of the population supporting EU integration. Of course, she had in mind the many demonstrations last June, also in March, in favor of the EU, and she expressed support and resolve of France and of EU to accompany Georgia on its EU path. She insisted that Georgia's future is in the European Union and that Europeans and France has recognized it last year by granting the EU perspective. And she also repeated that France wants that future, that European future, to come true. She recalled that this process is usually very long, but it has started, that the opportunity is unprecedented, and that the Europeans are united to accompany Georgia on its path, but it's a path that Georgia has to progress on. And for the progress to happen, to get the candidate status, this is clear what has to be done. There was a roadmap. The roadmap is the 12 priorities that have been defined by the European Commission. And Georgia has to take decisive steps to make courageous reforms to advance in the implementation of the 12 priorities. That's the only key towards the candidate status. Catherine Colonna said several times that this path is the roadmap to be clearly and without any ambiguity, with the resolve that Georgia has to move ahead. And of course, there's still time before December, but there will be an oral briefing of the Commission. We said in spring, so now we are in the middle of spring, so I can't tell you exactly when, but there will be also a report, written report of the Commission in October before a decision in December. So now it's time to accelerate the reforms and to move, as I said, with a visible commitment, with a straightforward steps. And all it is about, we all know it's about independence of justice, protection of institutions from influence of private interest, freedom of media, pluralistic society. In short, it's about consolidating democracy and the rule of law. That's what will allow Georgia to benefit from the candidate status. And we are well aware that's what Georgian population wants also for its future, because the democratic sentiment here is very firm, as we have witnessed, all of us, with this demonstration in March, but with all demonstration and the history of Georgia in the last 30 years. What else can I say? So speed up with the reform, commit resolutely with the 12 priorities, because there's still a long way to go. But Georgia can rely on France's support and on European unity in support of Georgia. Third message, and I'll be very fast on this one, because we can spend 1 hour on this, increase our bilateral relation. Our relations are already very rich. Not everything goes through official authorities. I think the exchange between population, business, parliament is very important. But the minister insisted that we want to diversify our relation, and first and foremost to support the numerous reforms on the EU path. We have a French development agency that has been present and working with the Georgian authorities since 2016, and they can provide with even more expertise in many areas like energy, transport, agriculture, and water. We can also continue to do more on tourism and many other issues we are already working on. And it's our interest that Georgia, that has a central position between Europe and Asia, make progress to develop the projects that the country wants to develop. And we want them to do it with its European partners, if it's what Georgia wants. We obviously have a lot of cooperation with Georgia on education and culture. We have the French Caucasus School, we have the French Georgian University, and we want mobility between the youth to increase, because we think there is a huge potential. We also want to showcase the quality and importance of our relation by building a new embassy in Tbilisi, and that's something that the minister insisted on, that we need now to have an embassy that was built by France, and that shows the importance and the quality of our relation. Our minister has invited her counterpart to be in France next fall. We have institutionalized a dialogue in 2019, which is called the Amilahvari dialogue.
Yes,
This is a
yes.
strategic dialogue at the level of Minister for Foreign Affairs that covers defense, security, business, development, education, culture. We have not met, unfortunately, since 2019 at this level because of COVID-19, but it's an important meeting that is going to happen next fall to take stock of all the achievements we have made, and also to give a new impulsion to our relation. We have to prepare now an ambitious roadmap for the next coming years on our relations, and they have diversified, but they have even more potential. So to finish, Victor, I just wanted to insist on the fact that, of course, the visit of Catherine Colonna didn't happen in an isolated way. The German Minister of Foreign Affairs was in Tbilisi 1 month before. The Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs was there the day before. And
Yes.
we also have an important intention to coordinate into what we call the Weimar format, our policies with regard to European security. Also, Denmark was here this morning to, as you know, to inaugurate new embassies. We have now 18 EU members that have embassies in Tbilisi, and this number will, I'm sure, grow in the future. So that is to say that Georgia is not alone, that European partners are here, and they are more and more here, that Tbilisi is more and more within Europe as well. The Prime Minister will be participating to the European Political Community meeting in Moldova in June, and we will continue to work hand in hand to advance security, stability, and democracy, because these are our common value in Europe, Georgia included.
Sure. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Your Excellency, for very helpful and very insightful the summary of the Minister Colonna's visit to Georgia. You rightly mentioned the sequence of very important visits by various other foreign ministers, which sends a very strong message in terms of Europeans and European Union support to Georgia. Thank you also for highlighting those messages which were given in the course of those meetings. Just a few questions, Your Excellency, if I may, please. Several issues which were emphasized in the course of those meetings. The first issue is the security environment in the region. Has anything in particular been discussed in the course of those meetings in terms of enhancing the security cooperation between two nations? We all know that France is very much focused on the region over the recent years. You mentioned Nagorno-Karabakh conflicts, the various the contribution or input which France had so far to peacefully resolving that's the conflicts. So has anything specifically been discussed? That this is the first issue in regard to security. And the second issue with regards to the European Union candidacy status. The Georgian foreign minister has mentioned that many meaningful steps were already made to implement the required reforms. But he also said that the work is still in the progress. Could you please educate us on any, if I may put this way, on more critical challenges which were put an attention to in course of discussions? 12 recommendations are in the progress of being implemented. But if Your Excellency could highlight from your perspective, which are more critical, which are more important, more on the radars and more on the agenda. So has anything been discussed in more particular way in course of those meetings? Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. So what I can say about security cooperation is that in practice, it has seriously improved and diversified also since the war in Ukraine. It's obviously not in this format that I'll be disclosing what is being done exactly, but we have more and more cooperation in the field of defense and security between Georgia and France, and it's more and more institutions that are connected, and we have many visits and many exchanges. That is something that is of great benefit for France and also for Georgia. We had historically had a strong cooperation in the field of air defense and also in mountain combat. And now it's also, we have this again, but it's also diversifying to other fields. So that's something that we are really happy of, and that we want to also formalize also through the Amilarbari dialogue. When it comes to EU candidacy, the minister and together with Georgian counterpart, they didn't go into the details of this or that priority. But of course, when our minister stressed the importance of having a more straightforward, resolved, firm commitment to the 12 priorities, she obviously had in mind, and she mentioned the draft bill on NGO. That was a worrying step, although now it's behind us, hopefully. But that the roadmap should be followed clearly, with no hesitation and without procrastination. So we could have sometimes the impression that Georgia is moving on this, but going backward on that. So that's what has to stop. And I think that what is very clear is that lots of legislation have been adopted, but the 12 priorities are not only about adopting and changing the law, it's about implementation. And maybe on many things also you don't need to change the law, but you need to change the way it works. So obviously it's not for us to judge what Georgia has done. Georgia is still doing things. Georgian authorities are not saying that they have implemented everything and that the 12 priorities have been addressed. And many things can happen between now and December. And it's important to look at the implementation of the legislation, the statements of the authority, the actions. So I would say that it's very important, justice, it's very important, human rights, including freedom of media. It's very important to respect independence of the independent institutions and to show commitment to the 12 priorities and to the spirit of the 12 priorities in general.
I agree. I completely agree with you, and it's a very helpful reminder, Your Excellency, that although we have enacted more than 80 laws to meet the European expectations, but it's not just about the legalese, it's about the spirit. And when it comes to the spirit, it's my personal observation, and I'm giving a liberty to myself to say that Georgians, it's still quite the time till we hear a final say from European Union. So it's not just about ticking the box in terms of formality, but Georgia's stakeholders creating a full confidence that what they do is exactly in terms of having that pro-European spirit. So it's not just about enacting the laws, it's about instilling an environment of a pro-European nation and pro-European decision-making process. So I fully agree with you. That is a very helpful reminder to the Georgian audience. And when we speak about the Georgian audience, the French minister has mentioned at some point when she was in Tbilisi that Georgia is fortunate having a vibrant and robust civil society. And that is, Your Excellency, next question, which, if I may, to raise. You mentioned Amilakvari dialogue, strategic dialogue. Do you see any ways for, and I appreciate that it's a dialogue between officials from both sides, but if there is any space, if there is any room for civil society to plug into the dialogue, to contribute, to make it more efficient and more strategic in a way. So when we speak about inclusivity of the process, on mutual recognition, respect, if there is anything, Your Excellency, which we civil society could do to bolster those relations, whether through the Amilakvari strategic dialogue or any other venues or any other platforms of cooperation. Thank you.
Well, that's a very interesting question. Indeed, the strategic dialogue is about ministerial discussions, and this ministerial discussion are supposed to wrap up broader discussion that could completely include civil society on both sides. So I think it would be interesting because indeed, as we are now supposed to work towards next autumn, I think we would have time to include civil society organization, think tank, and businesses, because that's what it is about. Like, relationships between countries are not about government relation, it's about countries relation, and the countries go below their government. So thank you for this idea, and I think that we will take that into account while building the next steps for the Amilakvari dialogue. And especially, you know, even when we discuss development and projects in the field of agriculture or education, I mean, we have to do it with the farmer associations, with the businesses. So all the issues are of interest for population on both sides, and their civil society organization. That's possibly also something that we need to encourage here. So you have the political NGOs, but you have also all these other NGOs that are working on social issues, health issues, and that is part of our cooperation.
I see.
So let's work with them indeed.
Yes, exactly. And thank you for picking up on this point, and thank you for agreeing that when we speak about fully fledged cooperation, it's not just about cooperation among official decision makers, but about cooperation at the grassroots level. And we all realize and appreciate that the stronger those relations are, the stronger the partnership between the nations is. Ambassador, the very last question, if I may. So we mentioned sort of, you know, high level of interaction between officials of the two nations. We mentioned the civil society, and we all agree that civil society has a very specific and very unique role in terms of bringing our countries together. The last point, it was not mentioned in the course of the meetings, but you, as the ambassador of France to Georgia, what do you expect in terms of let's say, making stronger the business ties, because business sector, that is also an extra contributor to bringing our nations closer to each other. So shall we expect, if I may rephrase myself, shall we expect any high-level business missions from France to Georgia, either this year or next year? Shall we expect any exchange at the business level, at the level of commerce and investments? Could you please share some thoughts of yours on this issue as well? Thank you.
What I can say is that the business is, for me, since I'm here, not up to the relation between our two countries. We should have more investment, more French businesses here. And in a way, the war in Ukraine has also created opportunities for companies not being able to work in Russia, Ukraine anymore and looking around. So we have to take that into account and encourage businesses and investment to come to Georgia. And this is something that is under process. I think it's important that it comes from companies. Of course, also everyone is looking at the situation as very fragile. And I think that, for example, when we had like the demonstration in March, some companies canceled some visits. So the image of what is happening here in Europe and outside Georgia is very important also when it comes to investors and business opportunities. So it's about stability, but it's also about the rule of law and the legal framework and about justice and predictability. So these things, we have to work on companies and investors coming, but we also have to encourage our Georgian partners to have predictability, stability, legal security here. In addition to all these opportunities that are we saying, but it's true that there are projects that are happening and announced and disappearing and coming back. And I'm not, be very frank on that, I'm not sure I understand completely what's happening. And it's very important for us to understand what's going on to explain to our business association what they can expect. So I think for me, I have to dig more into what's the meaning of things in Georgia.
I see.
But predictability is very important for that.
I see. Your Excellency, my personal note, I should tell you that you're not alone. You're struggling sometimes to understand what's happening here because we Georgians are struggling on our own to understand what's happening. So this is, my personal observations, but you made a very good point that stability, security, and spirit-minded reforms. This is also very important because we should have we should provide with a clear and unambiguous messages the European community and the French community, whether it's an official community or the business community, that we're unequivocally on that path. So there should be no mistake about our intentions. It's not just about ticking the box. And therefore, the visit of Your Excellency, Minister Colonna, really was very important, extra signal and extra message. Your Excellency, I know that, again, it was appreciation that you've not just arrived, but you recently arrived to Georgia. May again wish you all the very best of success. I should tell the audience that I have a privilege and personal favor to meet Your Excellency, Ambassador of France. So in your face, we have not just an ambassador of France to Georgia, but ambassador of Georgia to France, and as well, in addition to the ambassador whom we have officially. So this is a very critical time. We're lucky to have you here. We wish you all the very best, and may I thank you again, Your Excellency, for your time, patience with my questions, and your very helpful highlights. Something at the very end of our session, so the Georgian audience, please feel free. And thank you again.
Thank you, Victor. If I may, I just say a few words that I really indeed feel like I'm super connected to our Georgian ambassador to France, and we are really working hand by hand. I think it's important that people, diplomats participate to mutual unambiguous message and commitment. I think these are key words, because vague formula are creating doubts about intentions sometimes, and that's I think problematic, because it risks of creating missed opportunities. So I want to just finish by saying that we want Georgia to succeed in its European future, in its economic development, in its democracy, and we will support all efforts in this country and all forces that are willing to work together to make that European dream a reality. And I think you can count on all Europeans on this. We are many to be here. Much more are coming. There will also be visits to France. The speaker is coming to Paris in June. So there is a will to work with you and to support your EU path. So please trust us.
We do, Ambassador, and thank you so much indeed for that commitment, for that dedication. As the small, tiny parts of the Georgian society, we at Geocase stand next to you, Ambassador, and the French embassy, and please feel count on us as well. We hereby to use this opportunity and to underline our willingness to establish better links with the French think tanks and analytical centers for a better exchange of communication. That would be a good contributing and extra points to the excellent work which you as the ambassadors are doing on your side, and to the officials on both sides of the mail. So thank you so much, Ambassador. I really, again, very much sincerely apologize for this technical error with video, but the audience could trust me that it was me, and it's me, Victor Kipiani. So thank you to the Ambassador of France to Georgia once again. All the best of luck to you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.